All right, let's get started now. I want to introduce Dan Herrald. He's going to give a presentation today, SOCs for the rest of us. Dave's background, he's an InfoSec professional from Denver, Colorado. He is currently a senior security architect, and he's done work as a pre-sales engineer, strategic security consultant, hands-on security architect, engineer, and InfoSec officer. So he's a pretty vast and lengthy background in InfoSec. In this talk, he's going to discuss key traits of some of the largest and most successful security operations centers that he has visited over the last 2 years. Let's hand it over to Dave.
All right, thank you guys. Let's get this set up here, see if this works. Cool. All right. Thanks for having me, everybody. This is an amazing event. I live in Denver. I've never been to Pittsburgh before, and I only knew Pittsburgh from Monday Night Football and Sunday Night Football. I'm like, man, those guys are tough. You guys are mean. And then when I got to, I was like, all right, you gotta be tough and mean. And I got here, and I just absolutely have never met a nicer group of people than all the folks I met in Pittsburgh. It's fantastic. So this talk, it's called SOCs for the Rest of Us. I actually wrote this along with a colleague of mine named Ryan Kovar, who can't be here today. He's actually in London. And we actually work for Splunk, one of the sponsors downstairs. We're not here to sell Splunk in any way during this talk. Downstairs, they're selling Splunk pretty hard. Just beware, that's their job. So one thing I do at Splunk, which is pretty cool, is we have like 13,000 customers, so I get to go around and talk to some of the biggest security customers for Splunk, and mostly when I come in, we're just talking not really about products so much, but about how organizations kind of use the security products, how their security operations centers work. And so we were actually submitting a talk for the SANS SOC Summit, which was actually earlier this week in DC. Was anybody there at the SANS SOC Summit by any chance? Cool. So that's the only other time we've given this talk. It was Tuesday, so there's no duplicates there. So one of the things we do is travel around the world a lot. So I'm one of those guys that travels almost 100%. And so we thought we would use some of our experiences to make some hypotheses about some things that we believe that the most advanced security operations centers are doing, and just try to prove or disprove those hypotheses by talking to some of these very, very large organizations, which I can't mention who they are, but they're literally the name brands in many different industries: healthcare, computer software, online service provider, kind of technology companies, defense contractors, government agencies, etc. So those are the folks we talked to doing the research for this talk. Yes, I need you to read this very carefully. Now, we always have to put disclaimers in when we're doing Splunk talk, but this isn't a Splunk talk, so I got to write my own. Yeah, I don't know if you'll get down quite to the bottom, but the Canadian dentist, fillings of passion, the huge molars of forced Northfink. That's my favorite part of the disclaimer. So, guys, and John did a nice job. Thanks, John, for introducing me. So I work at Splunk. I've been mostly in my career, I was a security practitioner for about 15 years. And about 5 years ago or so, I moved over to the dark side and ended up working at a vendor, so don't hold that against me too much. I've been involved I've been involved a lot with the SANS Institute over the years. So I have their GSE cert and been a mentor for them and sometimes speak at their conferences as well. My buddy Ryan, who's not here, he also has a long background. So this is, I have approximate knowledge of many things. So I'm not here to speak from an ivory tower. We just had a unique capability over the last couple of years to talk to some of these really, really giant organizations, and we figured that if we could pull a few things about what they're doing successfully to make them successful and share them with the community, that would be of value. So that's what this is all about. I mentioned a couple of times, I'm not here to sell anything. And please feel free to ask questions, interrupt, stop me if you want. A little coffee talk. I'm realizing that that kind of dates me, I think. All right, so the way we're gonna do this talk is we'll talk a little bit about some experiences we've had or that I've had, some hypotheses that we came up with that we try to prove or disprove, how we did that, and then kind of do a MythBusters style analysis of those hypotheses. So, oh yeah, this actually is fun. So, but it was just used to make a pew map of everywhere that I've traveled in the last 2 years, and so we could sit here and let it build for a long time, but safe to say that I'm not lying about how far across the world we fly, and plus security event, right? So need a pew map. All right, so the customers that I generally talk to, like these organizations, are everyone from these giant banks in Hong Kong to these guys, all of them, right? So Brian and I will jump in the car, we'll set up a meeting with everybody in the building. But very large companies to very small ones, and sometimes the small ones surprise us with the very unique things that they're doing. We see everything, right? So you see organizations that are, bought every product that's out there, right? Have them all integrated together, right? They have teams of people who know how to use those products, and they're able to detect and prevent, attacks very quickly in their environment. And then we have kind of the middle of the road folks, right? I got my Palo Alto or my FireEye, and I rely on that almost exclusively. But for the most part, we got this, and then the ugly, right? Which is, we got a guy that comes in every 2 weeks and changes the backup tapes, whether they need them or not. And that's their not only IT team, but also their security team. So let's talk about these hypotheses that we wanted to go over here a little bit. So the first one is the concept of tiers in the Security Operations Center. So we see over and over again, we see organizations struggling with staffing, right? Staffing, especially tier 1 staffing, just seems to be this constant, dare I say, hamster wheel of pain. Just organizations just constantly trying to find good help at tier 1 and trying to retain them, right, for more than just a few months, which it seems like unfortunately that's an average that we see happening a lot in that. So a lot of organizations that we see, the high-performing ones, actually are moving away from that idea of tiers and moving more towards other things, which I'll share with you in a few minutes here. But that was one of our hypotheses. There's also this concept of tier 1 jobs being replaced by automation. So it's a very popular thing to say. A lot of folks are talking about this. We're going to replace tier 1 with some sort of automation, right? And that's really just a response to tier 1 is so hard to staff for and to constantly manage that there's got to be a better way, right? And so that was another thing that we investigated. The best SOCs have data scientists, right? So this is something that I think is it's a popular concept. So we kind of set out to understand if that's really the case, if we really are seeing data scientists pervasively in these high-performing security organizations. No one has a good incident recording tool, which is a bit ironic considering my employer. But we tend, when we talk to these high-performing companies, say, okay, and what do you use for your incident response? And they'll be like, oh yeah, we use OneNote, or we use Evernote, right? Or we use a Word doc on a file share, or something of, we use a box note, something like that. And that surprised me, right? Because usually these organizations can buy whatever tool they want, right? They have the kinds of budgets that allow them to do that. And the fact, we tend to not see that, right? So that was one of our hypotheses. And also that there is a lot of commonality as well among different roles and different tool chains and things like that that are in use at these organizations. So we wanted to be somewhat scientific, not terribly quantitative, but we kind of wrote down these hypotheses, and we lined up like 7 or 8 people that were willing to talk to us and spend some of their busy time, and we we came up with a bunch of questions. I know you can't read that, but you'll be able to see it if you download it. But these are the questions that we asked to try to uncover the answers to these questions. But ultimately, there's plenty of my humble opinion sprinkled throughout here. Oh, yep, and we're here to share the best with you. Ryan makes great slides, so I love him for him. And we'll share the tidbits with you. All right, so people are more important than tools. So before I jump into kind of proving out those hypotheses, there was just a few things that we learned that were pretty cool that we wanted to share. And that first one is super important, is that people are more important than tools, right? And so whenever you go into an organization, and this is something that I do a lot in my day job, is we come in and talk to a customer, and they think I'm going to start talking to them about a product. And I say, forget about the product, because you're never ever going to be able to use that product the way that you're organized right now, the way that your security team is set up, the way your management the way that your management tiers are set up, the way that your security engineers and your security analysts are trying to kill each other all day long. You need to fix some of those things before you can actually use a tool, right, to start automating things. So people more important than tools. That was me and Ryan in Hong Kong one time. Great night. So Trail of Tears, right? So you guys get the reference, unfortunately. My daughter just did a big project, Trail of Tears, so I thought that was funny. Not funny, but not funny. Definitely not funny. Last time I ever come to Pittsburgh. But the concept of rigid structure within a security operations center of, this is tier 1 and this is all that they can do, and this is tier 2 and this is their job. They only get things that are escalated to them from tier 1, and this is tier 3, and they're the only ones that can do hunting or prescribe some action or something in the environment, and that's really going away. I think one of the things that we found as well, we asked, hey, what's the perfect security operations center personnel look like to you? And these folks, every single one of them said the very most important thing was curiosity, right? They wanted their security people to have a curious mind, right? To be somebody who's not satisfied with a surface level answer, that wanted to dive deeper, right, and get to the bottom of the root cause of a problem. And if you think about those types of folks, right, creative people, curious people, probably the worst type of organizational structure that you could possibly think of is what we look at as the traditional tiered model, right, where you can only do this, you can only do that, right? You're sort of working against their nature by doing that. Also, the most valuable technical skill, we talked to these folks, was coding, right? So we said, what's the most valuable technical skill? And they all said coding, right? Maybe it's Python or PowerShell or Go. A couple of them mentioned Go, which I was impressed with, but I don't know Go myself, but Python certainly. So the ability, right, to tie different products together, different processes together using some kind of scripting or coding. Like, you don't have to be an application architect, right? You don't need to be a software developer, right, professional per se, but you need to be able to pull things together. You need to be able to write code very tactically, so very, very important. A lot of the folks that we talked to, we said, hey, do the folks in your SOC have degrees? And a lot of people don't, and that's great, no worries. But of the people that do, we said, hey, what kind of degrees do your people have, right? And Mr. Manager of giant high-performing SOC, or Miss Manager, no pun intended. What types of degrees do your people have, right? And there's the normal stuff, computer science and certain types of engineering and that sort of thing. But also, we were really surprised to find there were tons of folks with psychology degrees, philosophy degrees, music, right? Other types of degrees where critical thinking or sort of organized patterns of thought were useful, right? But not necessarily technically oriented. Oh yeah, this is the best one. So learn to communicate clearly, both written and good or speaking. So this is super important, right? Like even this technical, right, the most technical person in the room, you still need to be able to sell your ideas and communicate them, right? Everybody in some ways has to sell something to somebody, whether it be, your technical approach to a problem or getting buy-in, right, that your analysis of a breach or something like that is correct. Very, very important to have those communication skills. Yeah. So the sort of emergence of data science in security operations. This is an interesting one. One of the guys we talked to is a guy in Denver who runs the security operations center for one of the biggest healthcare companies in the world. He actually said, we're actually not trying to automate tier one, right? I mentioned that earlier. He's like, we're just trying to build such better detection mechanisms using data science that the vast majority of the things that tier one traditionally has done, they just aren't there. We've eliminated those things, right? They're not there because the detection mechanisms are more solid, because they're based on some of the premises in data science. It's very much a buzzword, of course. There aren't that many true security data scientists around. The organizations we talked to had them, because they're the big ones that can afford that type of thing. However, I think the premise, right, the pieces and parts that go into a data scientist, those things are becoming more and more important. It's definitely something to take away, right? You don't need to necessarily be a master of machine learning, right? But you should be able to understand what's the distribution of my data, right? Does it make sense for me to do a standard deviation analysis or interquartile range or something like that to just do very quickly, tactically do an analysis? Is this a spike in activity, right? Is this an anomaly? Those types of skills, like tactical skills that are, a data scientist will be a master of those things, but security ops people need to have those skills in general, right? The pieces and parts and the tactical parts of that. Cloud versus on-prem, so this is something that is fascinating to me, and this has mostly happened since I've been not so operational from a security perspective. But that's the fact that many companies, right, actually have less and less infrastructure that's traditionally on-prem, right, in their four walls. Like at the company I work for, we actually have almost no infrastructure inside our four walls, right? All of our files are stored in Box. Our customer data is stored with a software as a service company. Most of our infrastructure is provided by cloud service providers, et cetera. So you start thinking about the things that the Security Operations Center used to do, right? Kind of guard a perimeter, maybe look at some host-based data, that sort of thing. That's all kind of flipped around, right? And collecting the right data for your Security Operations Center has also become quite a different endeavor than it used to be. Not just forwarding a log from a server or syslogging something from a network device, but pulling data maybe from an API, or maybe you have a service that posts data back to you, right? Like a platform as a service. It'll say, hey, we're actually gonna, you just give us a URL listener, and we're gonna post all that data back to you. That's your log data, right? So lots of different paradigms going on there for certain. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. The most important analyst trait, right, when we talk to these folks, was curiosity, and I think this probably doesn't surprise anybody, but I think that need to hire people, right, that aren't satisfied with the simple answers, who are willing to something that's just bothering them so badly after they get home from work, right, that they're like, oh, I gotta dive in, right, I gotta find out why that packet looked like it did, or that log error message said what it did, right, and diving down deeper. So let's jump in a little forward here. Findings. So anybody remember? All right, so these were those hypotheses that we talked about earlier. So the organizations have moved past tiers, and that tier 1 jobs are being replaced by automation. The best SOCs have data scientists. No one has a good reporting tool, and SOCs have similar people and tool sets. So, and we're doing this Mythbuster style, even though they went off the air, sadly. That new one doesn't count. So organizations have moved past tiers. So I think this is something when we asked a lot of these organizations, hey, how do you actually organize your security operations team? And many of them told us we look at it as one of them actually used these exact words, and we look at it like a draft, right? When we go out to hire, we find sort of the best person available, right? And we don't necessarily, we're not necessarily as worried about exactly what their precise skills are, but we have sort of a team of generalists, right? If they can code, if they have a curious mind, right? If they're a good communicator and they work well, in a team. One gentleman mentioned that he looks at it as his folks on his operations team as like almost like mission teams, right? Where you have this, you have somebody who's just as comfortable working an incident, right, and responding to an incident on one day as they are the next day, like going to the security engineering queue, right, and saying, oh, let's pull something off the queue that needs to be done, right? These two systems need to talk to each other. You know, this threat intel feed needs to be automatically downloaded and ingested into our SIEM or something like that. Taking projects like that and running with those and implementing those, and then the next day maybe working an incident again, and maybe the next day like doing some threat hunting, something like that, right? So I'm trying to play sort of structure the job and the requirements of the job more to satisfy the types of people that he's trying to attract, right? He's trying to attract people that like to do different things, that have a broad skill set, that are generalists, can communicate, all that. So make the job be more aligned to that, right? Which I thought was pretty cool. Some of the times when we asked, a couple of these folks mentioned that tiers are actually still, a lot of the reason why tiers exist in the first place is because they might use an MSSP. So they might say our tier 1 is our MSSP. So it just makes sense that there's these kind of boundaries around them. But for a lot of these other organizations, I thought it was pretty cool, the generalist idea, because that's a job I would want, right? That would be super fun, sort of role to find yourself in. All right, automation. Sorry, getting a little. So everybody says they want to replace their tier 1 analysts with automation. It's an easy thing to say. It's an easy thing to for a vendor to say. Just very, very hard to do, right? Hard to realize that. I don't think that we see, we don't see, right? When I first started thinking about automation for security a few years ago, or automated response, that sort of thing, I kind of wrote it off and said it'll never work, because I had a kind of a narrow view in my own head of, okay, when an alert fires, then we're going to go and do something automatically, right? And I just thought there's just too many things that are scary about that. There's too many things that you want a human being to look at and confirm, and make sure that that's the right thing, right? And that's true. I think that's still true. I think most of us who run security programs, we don't want to say turn off our production website, right, in response to some alert that we got from a certain system in our network. We want a human being to see that alert and make that call. However, that narrow view, right, of automation was wrong on my part, right, because there's so much more that you can do with automation. The big thing, I think, that we see is sort of the automated triage and automated context gathering. So when you see an alert, right, you're not going to go take some crazy action based on that, but you're going to go pull a whole bunch more data from your environment, right? Pull a list of running processes from a machine, or pull maybe even a memory dump or a forensic disk image, or just say, okay, we got this alert for this user. Let's find out the last 10 systems that user logged into, or let's find out the last 10 email domains that they received an email from, or the name of the last 50 attachments that they received, or whatever. These are things that are pretty easy to automate in a lot of systems. It's something we do in day job pretty well, and we can pull these things together, right, into what I've heard described as a triage package, which I like that a lot, that term, so that the first time that your analysts, right, these really expensive people, these really valuable people that we've been talking about, the first time they lay eyes on it, there's a whole bunch more context, right, that they have available to them. It's like the first 15 minutes of activity that they might normally do. Oh, I'm going to go, I see this alert, my normal response is to go look that up in my inventory system and see who owns it, and then I maybe search for logs or whatever, do all these manual steps, right? These are things that can be automated, and that's where I think the biggest benefit of automation is coming in. Every once in a while, I do run into somebody who says, "Yeah, we actually will block something. We'll block an IP address or something if we see a certain alert." That is generally the exception, and definitely not the norm. So the best SOCs have data scientists. So I kind of dwelled on this a little bit earlier, jumped ahead, but we are seeing this. We are seeing the most advanced SOCs going in this direction. I think that it's hard to find security data scientists, right? There was some great training yesterday, though. Who was at the training, the B-Sides training? Yeah. So you guys got, in the morning from John, you got a whole bunch of great information about machine learning and data science. And so, that information is starting to get out there in the form of training sessions and things like that. I think in my opinion, right, unless you're going to devote your career kind of to that, you might want to do more like what I described earlier, right? Which is to say, I should know the basics of how to select a machine learning model, or like what are the categories of different types of machine learning, or just some basic statistics, right? How do I calculate an average and a mean and a standard deviation and an interquartile range? These things are pretty simple. Like, you can do them in Excel and other tools. Those are the kinds of things, right, that I think are achievable for most organizations. Pretty tough to land a security data scientist, although you do see them a little more frequently than we used to. So no one has a good incident reporting tool. So this one is funny because I work for a company that sells such a thing, but we're not seeing anybody out there saying, man, this is the best way to record all the aspects of an incident or record all the aspects of a threat actor, right? There's tools out there. I know there's vendors out there, Threat Connect, good group. They have kind of their diamond model approach to collecting indicators and information about adversaries and those kinds of things. It's a good solution, but we're not consistently blown away by everybody's like, oh, we definitely use this tool or that tool. Or sometimes you see folks with crits or something like that for an indicator repository, but definitely not even a class of tools really that we see consistently out there. So if anybody wants a good startup idea, there you go. Maybe John will make Metron into that. So this one, security operations centers have similar people and tool sets. So the idea here is that these high performing organizations are trending in the same direction, right? Moving towards folks with similar skill sets. I think you're definitely seeing this, this concept of the generalist in the security operations center that can do incident response, that can do a little bit of coding, can do a little bit of threat hunting, and then there's still a lot of specialists, right? A lot of what I call them guilds sometimes, right? There's groups like reverse engineers, or really deep threat hunters, or excuse me, not threat hunters, but really deep cyber threat, threat intelligence analysts, right? Who track adversaries over long periods of time and maybe have language skills and that support the type of adversary they're going after. those guilds still exist, those specialties still exist, but the SOCs that we talk to, they're looking more at folks who can do lots of things well. All right, so some takeaways. We're actually gonna write all this up into a white paper, a couple of blog posts probably, coming out soon, and so we'll kind of list out all these hypotheses, these questions, the types of, not the names, but the types of organizations that we talk to, and hopefully, you know, that will be useful to a lot of folks in this room and a lot of other folks to kind of who want to model their security organization after the highest performing orgs in the world. And with that, I'm going to finish a little bit early. But my contact info is up there. I'd love to connect with any and all of you. And we have our table downstairs, so feel free to come down and get a t-shirt. I think we have some other goodies down there. And with that, I'm going to give you a little bit of extra break time, I think, this morning. So thank you very much.